shall laugh. He laughs at them. Why? Because he has set his Son upon the holy hill of Zion and sworn the decree, thou art my Son, this day have I begotten thee. And that position of exaltation which Christ occupies means, therefore, and this is what makes God laugh, they can't do anything apart from the will of Christ and the will of God's Son. Not a thing. Let them make their laws approving of homosexuality. Let them make their laws about the church preaching against it as becoming guilty of hate crimes that makes them worthy of imprisonment. Let them go ahead. Let them do whatever they want to do. We don't care, do we? I don't care. Christ rules. They can't do a thing without the will of Christ. He rules by his power, by his infinite power, by the power of God himself. And all creatures are subject to his will. They're under his control. Not only that they do what they want to do by the power of Christ, but they serve Christ's purpose. It's like being in the army and fighting against an overwhelming enemy, 100 times greater than the army of which you are a part. And it has powerful weapons at its disposal. But the commander of that army that opposes you is one who loves you and will never let anything bad happen to you. No matter what. No matter how great the army is. No matter what they do. So they kill you. So what? Death becomes the door to heaven. They can't do anything except what God wants them to do. No wonder that God laughs. They rage and rant and storm and rave, and they're only serving the purpose of God. That's Psalm 2. Because God has set his Son on the holy hill of Zion. That's the rule of his power. On the other hand, there is the rule of his grace. That's different. Still sovereign. Totally, absolutely sovereign. But nevertheless, it's his grace, his favor, his love. And so, by the rule of his grace, he sets up his throne in the hearts of his people. And he transforms them so that they become willing, humble, joyful servants of Christ. Changes them by the power of his grace. And so that they become his servants who worship him and adore him. I recall once being down south, I think it was in the state of Alabama, if I remember correctly. And there was a Christian family down there that I was visiting. And when I came to their front door, outside of the door, above the door, they had a big sign posted. And that sign read, "In this house, Christ is King." I like that. In this house, Christ is King. Not the father is king, not the mother is king, not the children are king, but the whole family are servants of Christ, who do his will, who willingly and joyfully bow before his sovereign control of their lives, who wouldn't for anything do anything that would be unfaithful to their king, who loves them and who establishes his kingdom in their hearts. Don't ever confuse those two. If you want to know, that's the fundamental principle, the fundamental error of common grace. They talk about a rule of God's grace over the wicked as well as over the righteous. What kind of business is that? Christ in his position of glory rules over the wicked who hate him by his grace. If you talk that way, then you have nothing left of the antithesis and nothing left of the calling of the church in the world to represent the cause of Christ. If we all are the objects of God's grace, we might as well join hands with the world and pursue their causes with them and persuade them to join us in our causes and labor together for the kingdom of Christ, because we're all equally under the rule of Christ's grace. What a dreadful thing that becomes. No, the antithesis is rooted in the rule of Christ, in the difference between the rule of his power and the rule of his grace. He makes his people the citizens of his kingdom that he has come to establish. And so, because Christ is sovereign over all, the relation between these two is important as well. The rule of Christ's power over the wicked is for the purpose of the rule of Christ's grace over his church. The scriptures never weary of reminding us of this. All things work together for good to those who love God and are called according to his purpose. Why? Because all the maniacal ravings of the wicked world are for the good of the church. Why are you worried? Why are you fretful? Why are you distressed in this world? All things are yours, and ye are Christ's, and Christ is God's. What more do you want? What more do you want than that? There's nothing that happens in this world which is apart from the rule of Christ, and there's nothing that happens which Christ has not ordained, God eternally in his counsel, for the salvation of his church. He was exalted as the head of the church. And that was the one great thing. He loves his church. He loves his church with a great love. He loves his church so much that he will do anything for his church. We won't do anything for the church except harm the church, but he loves the church. He never does anything for the church that's harmful. He loves his church so much that he will give himself to the terrible death of hell in order that his church might be redeemed. And so even now, while you and I are worshiping here, Christ looks down from heaven and sees us and smiles and says, my purpose is being accomplished. I'm gathering my church. These are my people. These are the objects of my everlasting love. I will so rule in all things that this little flock may be saved.